Okay, hello everybody. Thank you very much indeed for attending the latest in our series of the Innovation Masters series around innovation. My name is Jeff Kaus. I am responsible for our European business at Imaginatik. I'm delighted to be joined by one of our customers, Roger van Bruggen from KLM, who will be talking about innovation within KLM, some of the pressures within the airline industry, and then more importantly what they're doing to engage external audiences to address some very pressing needs. A couple of points of reference here. There'll be questions. We can take questions halfway through Roger's presentation, after he's finished the context setting for innovation in airlines and KLM, and then at the end we're taking questions again. If anyone has questions, please enter them in the message box, the question box, which should be in your control panel. Please do ask them, and obviously we'll try and get to as many as we possibly can. Right, just to start the agenda then, we've been running the Masters series for quite some time now. This is, oh gosh, I'm guessing now our 20th, 25th on Innovation Master Series. We have a whole raft available on our website. You're very welcome to go and look at them. They're all recorded and available for anyone to have a look at. Many different organizations in different sectors. It's very much about practitioners talking. It's not us talking very much. Hence, well, Roger's delighted to participate. For those of you who don't know who we are, Imaginatik is an organisation who helps companies build their capability to innovate. You know, we're sort of best known for some of the technologies we have around idea management and breakthrough thinking, those kinds of things. But we also do a lot of work around having organisations think through what innovation is and how you develop it as a competence. You know, we all know that organisations today need to be very good at operations and with metrics and KPIs, and that's absolutely crucial to today's world. But what organisations sometimes forget about is the need to think about innovation. And innovation has a different language, a different competency set, a different dynamic around the language that's used. We talk about ambiguity, uncertainty, creativity, and all these terms aren't used within an operational context. There's obviously lots of exceptions. But if you think about innovation as a competency, you can think about it as needing to align two things: that the mind of innovation, the culture, the processes, and the body, the things that you do on a day-to-day basis. And over time, you can develop this innovation muscle, this innovation capability, through a structured program where you look at culture, process, and all kinds of different enablers. When once you regard it in this light, it enables you to develop a journey that you want to go on. And it gives you a rational case as to what you're going to do in the next 6, 9, 12 months, and measure how much progress you've made. We think about innovation as a series of competencies you need to bring together. A lot of innovation comes from ideas. It also comes from other aspects as well. Without ideas being the focal point, surrounded by things like governance, how are you going to bring ideas to market? How are you going to get the right processes, culture, the transition from concept into production? All these things in place. If you're going to sustain this competency, how are you going to create a learning environment? Engage employees, business partners, customers, create alignment within your organization, and also think about discovery. How are you going to discover fundamental new insights around your sector, your technology base, technology platforms, or whatever? That'll give you the context for innovation, where ideas alone won't give you that. So there's a lot of stuff to think about. Please look at our website. There's a lot more material that we have around these. But today is really about KLM. So I'm going to hand over to Roger, who's the Director of Innovation at KLM. I've known Roger. Roger, we've known each other for quite a while now, haven't we? Probably.
I think since last year, June. That's when we first met. And yeah, basically it took us a while to step into actually going into open innovation using a system such as Imaginatik. Mm-hmm. But I think we closed the deal earlier this year, and since then we've started our endeavors. And I would say so far so good.
Yeah, and more to come.
Definitely, and I'm thrilled to share some of the stuff we did with all of you, and I'm hoping for a lot of insightful questions.
Okay, so Roger, I'll hand over to you now.
Okay.
Let me just
hand over. Yep. So I'm sharing my screen with all of you now. Somebody can confirm?
I can see it.
Yes? Okay, perfect, perfect. So Jeff, once again, thank you for giving me the great opportunity to talk a bit about my beautiful company and the endeavors we've done so far. I think we've had a very interesting first round of open innovations, and I'm glad to share it with you. So as a bit of a personal introduction, I'm not really an innovation guru. Going back a bit in the past, basically before having the title innovation something on my business card, I used to be in restructuring. So I did 3 reorganizations, restructurings in the 2 years before that. Before that, I was in management, first in commercial management as a sales director for one of our business units, and then as a general manager in South Korea for Air France KLM, that was. So going into innovation was, it seems a bit of an odd move, but basically I've always been known for trying a lot of things and putting a lot of energy to change, and that made a nice match for stepping into innovation. So much for my background. And then on to the company. So I work for KLM. KLM is a part of Air France KLM. We're part of the aviation industry. So I'll tell you a bit about that. Then I'll go into the innovation strategy we have here at KLM. And then we move on to our open innovation endeavors. So looking at Air France KLM, I think it's safe to say that we're a global leader in the air transport industry. We carry more than 77 million passengers, actually should be 80 million this year. We have a lot of revenues, a lot of know-how through more than 100,000 employees. We have quite a modern, fuel-efficient fleet, although we've been surpassed by some of our competition now, but still it's quite a modern fleet. We run, because these slides are slightly outdated, we run over 250 destinations now, and we carry expectedly more than 73 million passengers this year. We have a good load factor, much better than competition average, and we are also in the cargo field one of the major players still. So looking at this, sounds like they are impressive figures, but the growth of the airline industry is still significant. So basically, looking at the forecasts, and these are shared by Boeing, by Airbus, and they're all roughly the same with a give or take -5, +5, -10, +10%. But everybody expects that around about 20 years, the airline business will have doubled. Those estimates mainly arise from the fact that the airline industry is a highly cyclical industry and that we move with GDP growth. So if we take a modest GDP growth, then we end up with roughly a doubling of the airline industry in 20 years. Can be 25 years or 18 or 17 years, but at least there is still a high pace of growth in the airline industry. To give you some of the characteristics of this industry, and also show you a bit of the playing field that we're in, to summarize, I think it's safe to say that the core business of aviation hasn't changed in over a century, or in a small century. Ever since we started operating as aviators, we started transporting passengers, we started transporting cargo, and at the same time we have to maintain our aircraft. So that's basically still the 3 main core businesses of all the aviation companies. Some can argue that maybe the low cost have a different model. I would say no, they still have the same revenue model, but they have a slightly higher focus on keeping the cost down and basically in that sense creating value for the consumers by offering lower prices. But I would argue that looking at all the airlines, basically the core business is the same. Next to that, we all have the same suppliers. So we have very powerful OEMs, such as Boeing, Airbus, General Electric, and Honeywell, just to name a few. Those dominate the supplier space. Maybe the larger airlines like ourselves get a slightly better deal, but we have no grounds for saying any of that. So it's, in terms of suppliers, it's a pretty level playing field. On top of that, it's a highly cyclical, but also a commoditized industry. So there's not many customers paying money for brand value, in that term of thinking. So it's really a commoditized industry. People are paying for what they are getting, and a seat is a seat, and extra service is not often paid for. So it's a very tough industry. So that makes competition a real battlefield. We all have the same hardware, we're roughly competing on cost, and we all share the same business model. So looking back, airline has expanded tenfold in the past 20 years. In the past 40 years, sorry. So in that respect, a doubling in the next 20 years is a reasonable expectation. But at the same time, we have seen in terms of real cost, corrected of course for inflation, we see that unit costs have decreased, but also the ticket prices, or the prices we have charged for customers, have in the same pace, significantly decreased. So it shows that the tough spot we are in. So in this tough spot, we still see a lot of opportunities and a lot of things that will impact our business. So we see exponential change, aging population, which is very significant for us. We see our customers getting older. We see older people traveling more, having higher budgets than, let's say, the 20 and 30 and 40-year-olds, creating a whole new target group. All marketing used to be about getting the young people to join you because they were the movers and the spenders, but that's not the case anymore. So we are looking at ways of playing into this aging populations. We're also looking into robotics a lot because we feel that a lot of our cost disadvantage compared to the low-cost carriers can be overcome by the smart use of robotics and automation. Just to name a few. So I could go into depth for many of those, but I'll leave you with those two. However, every time we come up with, as innovation departments, we come up with a lot of new stuff to try and to sort of philosophically wrap our minds around in terms of growth strategies, we often get the response that the company is very busy and has a lot of important things to take care of. So basically the sentence is, don't bother me with these things, and you see the guy with the machine gun in the Viking era because his boss has a war to fight. Well, that's the feeling we get sometimes. Nevertheless, we never stop trying. And when we're talking about innovation and source of innovation, basically it's a very simple picture to us. We have innovation that's coming from inside and innovation that's coming from outside. So we use the knowledge and the capabilities we have focused basically on three areas. We enhance productivity, we improve our processes, and we develop those skills that we need to perform even better. But it's when you're looking at new technology or radical changes, often you have to go outside to find these. And we do that by looking at other industries, looking at technology departments and technology developments and seeing what these can offer us. But also looking at the startup world and seeing what are the entrepreneurs in the startup world picking up on in terms of technology, but sometimes in terms of social changes and social movements that we as a big corporate should try to get from them. So what those startups have learned us, for example, is that social media is a very important and powerful tool. So we didn't wait for other airlines to adopt it. No, we looked at we saw startups moving in this space. Social media was becoming hot. And then in 2010, when we had the big volcano crisis and a lot of the airline traffic was ceased because of the potential harmful effects of volcano smoke, we massively used social media. And with that, we could use a lot more passengers than before. So we learn from startups, other industries, and from technology developments. So that's basically a source for external innovation. So looking at the key elements, because we did structure the letter of what I told you in a bit of boxes, although they sometimes overlap and they have a lot to do with each other. We claim we have 3 core competences, and we have 3 programs that we run cross-company and multi-department. So what we consider the competencies of our department are, the first one is looking outside into ventures, into startups, and seeing what they can bring for us. This is also the cross-industry part, but we look at how entrepreneurship outside our industry can help us become a better airline. The second one is open innovation. So we take problems we have inside and see if we can connect those to solutions we can find outside. And sometimes that is by means of a system, sometimes that's by means of a by-chance introduction, but we have a very clear open innovation focus. And the third one is business model innovation, where we feel that given our experience with business models and business model redesign, that we are running a couple of initiatives to come up with new business models that can over time grow to be a substantial part of our business. Maybe a fourth core business, that's of course our dream. So our first three core businesses are passenger transport, cargo transport, and aircraft maintenance. And at the fourth business, we're always looking for something new. So we have a couple of candidates, and that's what we're also working on. And this we are running a couple of projects, and we are supporting other departments in modeling basically their new business opportunities they see. So in terms of programs, we run a biofuels program. So let me talk a bit about that. So from early 2000s, so let's say 2004, 5, 6, we started shaping our ambition, what we wanted to be as an airline. That's one of the things that KLM and Air France have in common, that the focus on being as green as possible is very important to us. We know that as an airline, we are an industry that is not among the cleanest, so to speak, maybe even the other way around. But at least in the realm of the manageable, let's see what we can do. So we set ourselves a couple of targets, at least on the ground, as carbon neutral as possible. We set up a couple of partnerships with the World Nature Funds, and I think as a main, we said to ourselves we want to have significant amounts of biofuel in this late decade. So we are starting out with 1% in 2015, and I hope to increase to 2% in 2017 and to 4% through 2025. That's still a challenge because there's no really organized biofuel chain. So that's one of the programs we run from the innovation department. We do that jointly with a lot of departments, but we are in charge of the program. Another program, basically we have two more programs next to biofuels that we're setting up. One is big data, and the other one is robotics. So where is that coming from? Basically, we see a lot of departments that are working on huge volumes of data. These are both customer data, but they're also ticketing data. So they're both commercial data, but from another angle. And on top of that, we have lots and lots of operational data. When aircraft departed, how fast aircraft was loaded, etc. You cannot imagine the amount of data we are gathering every day. That's all managed and harvested in very different parts of our company. So we decided to start up a company-wide big data program to make sure that everybody knows how to make the most of their data, and even seeing if we can find added value in combining data. As a third program, robotics, I already mentioned briefly that we believe that robotics and automation can bring us a significant advantage in terms of coming closer to the low-cost airlines. We think that we should definitely make speed on this, and because of this, we are at this moment creating a roadmap for all business units and segments we have in the company to think about their robotics philosophy and see how we can obtain and maximize robotics implementation by 2025. Probably you know, but in Europe, especially the Netherlands, we have an aging problem. So we have an aging population, and we will see significant retirement waves in the coming 12 to 17 years. So I cannot give you the exact details in terms of confidentiality, but they are going to be significant. So we can do two things. We can replace them with old-fashioned human labor, or we can stepwise implement robotic solutions where we can basically offset those retirement waves and at the same time steer clear of any difficult negotiations with unions, because we're only replacing what is retiring. So that's our scheme. To make that happen, because robotics, it looks like everything is there already, but in practice, especially for a niche industry like the airline industry, there's a lot of self-development and co-development to be done before we have maximized the potential of robotics solutions. So that's the three programs we have, and in a nutshell, the overview. In all these, in the programs and in the other parts, open innovation plays a key role. So for us, it's all about connecting internal and external knowledge and resources with a focus on reducing costs and adding revenue. So for us, we have lots of open innovation challenges, but I think we are setting down the proper frameworks. Internally, we're working on the right culture, and we are creating the specific competencies. So basically, we're up to getting the maximum engagement now, internal and external, based on a number of challenges. Also on a number of challenges. Of course, we're not doing everything with challenges, but we are going to do a number of challenges. And I will gladly talk about the first challenge we did on the Imaginatik platform. I think in the next part, right? I think we have to go. We're having a short break for Q&A here.
Yeah. So any questions, please please enter them into the chat window, into the question window. There's a couple already, kind of on a similar theme, where you're in a very significant organization, 100,000 people, 80 million customer journeys per year. So you've got to do something which is material. There's no point in doing too many small things, I suspect. So introducing a material change into an area, a business as complex as KLM, it strikes me as being really quite tricky to do, but you've obviously built a competency around it because you do it all the time. Can you talk to that at all about how you kind of introduce these significant changes into an airline?
I think getting a change done, even if it is a small change, takes a substantial amount of energy. So if you have a great idea, you still need to defend it between 10 and 20 times before it gets implemented. And that's because once it gets implemented, it needs to be done well. Because we never implement anything for just one flight or one passenger. When we implement something, we're going to use it across the board. Which means that we should be, let's say, be humble about the number and the impact of changes, and at the same time be proud of the changes that we do get through, because these will impact our whole company. If we talk about things like adopting a new piece of software, we'll do it across the board for all our systems. Or if we talk about having a new lighter coating, we'll use it on more than 500 aircraft. So of course it takes years for us to find the agreement. Okay, we're actually going into this innovative coating. Once you get it done for a lot. So I think the message is be humble on the pace, but once you realize it, the impact is usually pretty large.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Another question is around leadership. What's it, the support at either the KLM level, executive level, or even higher for innovation? How does that work in practice? Can you talk to that at all?
In practice, it's about demonstrators. So basically, we have to demonstrate let's say, at the level beneath the board of directors. We have to demonstrate that something is working. They will take it up to the KLM board of directors, and we implement it for KLM. And if it works for KLM, usually we implement it at Air France. That's the rhythm we tend to follow. Mm-hmm. So we go for a pilot, then for a KLM implementation, and then for an Air France implementation. Sometimes it stays with the KLM implementation, depends on how that works. Okay.
So it's all about really about making the case and ensuring a really good delivery.
Definitely. Yeah. Especially in the field where we are working. I work a lot with the non-usual suspects, so the bit smaller companies, the companies that are not as well known as our normal suppliers. Then it takes a lot of convincing and trust building before our line departments or the department in question trusts the startup enough to do even a pilot. So it's basically that's where a lot of the energy is. So I would consider myself more of a traveling salesman sometimes than an innovation professional.
Right. Okay. Do you find the sources of inspiration coming from startups? Is that a significant source that you're looking for with your scouting and other activities?
I think it's a bit of a balance. Sometimes it can be indeed startups, but it can also be other industries showing us the way, or such as the automotive industry, which I think is going through tremendous innovations. But it can also be technology. So learning about the stuff that people invent in technology and thinking about the way technology is going can actually help us shape our strategy towards the bit longer term future. For instance, in terms of connecting with passengers, identifying passengers. So that stuff we can all learn from technology. So I think that's also broadly inspiring. The thing about startups, and that's something that most corporates envy, is their entrepreneurial spirit, and their speed. So in a startup, basically, it's small teams. So if they decide to do something, it happens next day. So the speed is fantastic. And the entrepreneurship, if they decide to do something because they believe in it, they can make it happen. In big companies, it takes a lot of effort for a CEO to express to his colleagues, to the other people in the company, the direction he's going and where he wants to take the company. So the speed and the manageability of startups and the entrepreneurial spirit is very inspiring. At least it is to me.
Do you find, it's the last question before you just move on, but one thing I sometimes see is startups trying to engage with big companies, and the big company can take so long to make a decision. The startup either goes and looks elsewhere or even goes bust.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something you've thought about at all, how to mitigate that risk? For
I've seen it happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it does happen. And of course, it's something that corporates have to learn, but it's also the right startup being able to cope with that.
Mm-hmm.
Because as a startup, if you're too much depending on that one corporate you hope to close a deal with, it might not be the right strategy. So that's what I always tell my startup partners, is don't over-focus on what we might bring you. And to give you an example, there is one startup that I've introduced for the third time in 1.5 years, because I think they have fantastic technology. They're I think the hottest Twitter startup in Europe. So they have a technology based on Twitter. I think when you like content-based marketing and you want employee activation, they have just a ticket. But it took me 3 different people to convince before finally was willing to do a pilot. Somebody was willing to do a pilot. So if the startup would have over-focused on us, he would have gone belly up.
Mm-hmm.
So I always try to advise them, because this process took more than 1.5 years. I advise them, look for more, spread your risks. Some don't do. So I had this guy that had this new, basically cleaning material. So he said, I can clean your aircraft better, and then they have less air resistance, saving fuel. In the end, before we were ready to do a pilot, he went belly up. And that's not really something we could do, because engineers just want to see the certification and the lab testing, etc. So does that answer your question a bit?
It does indeed. Should we move on to the next part of the presentation?
Yep. Sure. So the next part is basically our first endeavor into real open innovation, and it's called the KLM's Green Aruba Challenge. And I'll tell you a bit about why we did it, and why with Aruba, and how the partnership was formed. I'll tell you a bit about the challenge and the response, and how we went about selecting the winner. So why did we choose Aruba? Well, the thing is, we, as I mentioned in the previous part of my presentation, that we were having regular biofuel flights, and we launched a new series, and this series was going to Aruba and Bonaire, which are 2 small islands in the Caribbean, formerly Dutch, or still Dutch, depending on the way you look at it. And one of our biofuel flights was going to Aruba, or this series is going to Aruba. So we thought about something to do with Aruba, and we looked at Aruba and said, hey, wow, Aruba has this fantastic ambition. So they're calling it the Green Aruba ambition, and they want to be fully climate neutral in 2020. So we thought, okay, let us play into this, because we see that the Prime Minister of Aruba, Mike Eamon, really set his shoulders beneath this challenge, and so did Richard Branson, really admiring the challenge with his the Carbon War Room. So also the Carbon War Room is supporting the Aruba's ambitions. So we thought, okay, let's find a nice way to support this ambition and enter a partnership with Aruba, so to make sure that whatever we do has footing both in the Netherlands and in Aruba. So that's how we came to the Green Aruba Challenge. So we thought, what is the nicest way to do such a challenge? And our objective was really to help Aruba. So I said, okay, let's see if we can find entrepreneurs to bring their entrepreneurial spirit and energy to this goal. So we thought, okay, so we want sustainable entrepreneurs to realize their ambitions and their businesses on Aruba. So okay, what's the perfect price? What do we have to organize? Okay, let's see if we can make the price launching their business in Aruba. So jointly with the Aruban government and the Green Aruba, I think it's a foundation, we decided, okay, we are going to make a business launch for the winner of this challenge happen. So we decided to open a Green Aruba challenge, which we ran for 2 or 3 weeks jointly with Aruba, and we mainly focused on activating the Dutch and Aruban green startups, so the startups focused on sustainability, to contribute to our challenge, using the network we have as KLM, but also the network of the Aruban government. And our aim was really to find the best innovations that are actually being brought forward by entrepreneurs, and supporting these innovations and making it to market, and especially making it to Aruban market as fast as possible. So we divided the effort. We had a foot in both continents. We as KLM took it upon us to organize a challenge. So also, but at the same time, Aruba facilitating the price. So basically, we sponsored the tickets, and Aruba and the Green Aruba Foundation took care of the rest. And we had a lot of commitments from Aruba, from high levels in government society, that they would help not only the winner, but also the other submissions forward if they were relevant to making Aruba greener. So that was the goal of this challenge. So we use Innovation Central as the platform. I think we built something very nice looking, some greeny and some nice shiny water, and of course the KLM and World Nature Fund logo. And we came up with a sentence worth holding on to, then dive in. I think actually somebody from Imaginatik deserves the credit for that. Thank you, Chris, I would say. So this is the portal we opened, and then we just went out there. We didn't spend €1 or $1 on marketing. We just went out there with our normal free PR channel. So we put it on our social media. We connected everybody we knew in the startup world, both here as well as in Aruba, and we actively engaged the community. So in the end, that got us around 50 plus solutions. We had 10 to 12 really good ideas, and we ended up with a top 5 concepts. The first selection, basically from going from 50 to 10, we did purely systematic, or based on the Imaginatik system. We did the head-to-head review, and basically we had 4 criteria. So the most realistic business model, easy to scale, biggest improvement for the environment, and easiest to implement. Those we ranked, had to have, and I think we had 15 reviewers, and most of the reviewers I talked to had a fantastic time reviewing, because it's such a nice and easy way to review, and it's also very confronting, because in the end you always have to choose between your favorites. The system is quite smart, I have to say, and it gives you a very nuanced judgment about comparing apples and ideas and ideas. So it was very nice. So this led us to a semi-final with our top 10 submissions, and for that the semi-final we did in KLM headquarters here in Amsterdam, and for that we invited a Dutch expert jury. So we had somebody from the Amsterdam Economic Board, which is basically the top economic guy in Amsterdam, somebody from one of the accelerator programs in Amsterdam, someone from TNO, which is a famous Dutch research institute, comparable to the Fraunhofer Institute in Germany, some of you might have heard of, and of course ourselves. And we took the top 10 and we came up with a top 5. The top 5 submissions we brought to Aruba, where we had a very high-profile jury. So we had the Prime Minister of Aruba and let's say I would say the director of the Carbon War Room, so not Richard Branson, unfortunately. I think he couldn't bring himself to award a KLM prize. And our former CEO, Camille Eurlings, who left last week. So a very nice, high-profile jury in the Aruba finals. And eventually we chose a winner. So the winner was the Land Life company, something we would have never expected before. But Green Aruba was more of a metaphoric sentence, so nobody was thinking about actually making Aruba greener, but just making Aruba climate neutral, or at least CO2 neutral. It turns out there is a way to actually make Aruba greener, and that is the Land Life box. So they make this box, and in this box you can grow basically everything, even in desolate soil. Aruba is quite desolate, not much growth there. But basically, with their technology, you can grow tomatoes on Aruba. So their claim was we can make Aruba tomato independent, whereas Aruba is now importing millions of kilograms of tomatoes. So they won the prize, and the prize was the launching of their company on Aruba. And in fact, here you see a short summary of the results. So it's to mention. They had really a great reception on Aruba, and not just the winner, but they all had. And not only the Land Life box, because I've this picture on the Land Life box, so the winner, that they've actually started growing tomatoes over the last month. And that for us was fantastic to see, because we didn't only start the challenge, but we are now half a year after seeing the actual results, and we see the winner grow tomatoes on Aruba. And they're not complete trusses yet. There's still lots to be learned and lots to be skilled, but I would say so far so good. So we're very proud to have made that happen. But next to that, we also have 2 other of the top 5 that actually started doing business. So there was a smart lighting system, and there was a smart air conditioning system. So that's 3 solutions that are on their way to implementation or partly implemented. So it's as a company, as KLM, it's fantastic to have made this happen purely by creating the right platform and putting a lot of energy to it. And because, as I mentioned before, we didn't put in a single euro on marketing. It was all just using the means and the tools we have and our own energy. I think we had a fantastic reception in terms of media. So there was a couple of Dutch newspapers, smaller ones, but mainly Aruba newspapers that wrote about it in a very supporting and enthusing way. So I think all in all, we are very happy to have done this. Although the business impact, you must say, it's not going to have a huge business impact for KLM, but it's a fantastic demonstrator on how just using your network and the channels you have, you can get a lot in motion, setting the right platform and having the right goal and the right ticket. There's a lot you can achieve by structuring and by giving it your energy. So that would be what I would like to share with you this afternoon.
Right. Okay. If there are any questions, please enter them into the question box. A couple have come in. One is how the project's being funded in Aruba. Is it the Aruban government picking this up, or is it KLM?
No. Basically the only cost we had were the price. So we awarded the winner 2 times 2 tickets, so 4 tickets, Netherlands to Aruba, vice versa. Mm-hmm. The Aruban government sponsored the business launch, which was basically a cell phone, housing, and a car. And the rest was all, housing, so a house or a hotel room for the period of the launch.
Okay.
And the rest was all soft capital in terms of just using our connections, because one of them needed to be put in touch with the company that's doing the lighting along the road. The smart airco company needed to be introduced to a couple of hotels. So that's all soft capital. It doesn't cost you much. Just use the network you have and the connections you have. Mm-hmm. So I would say that the total funding needs were, for us, just 4 tickets. Of course, they're also resembling a money value. And for the Aruban government, I think they did everything with sponsoring as well.
Now, this has obviously been a bit of it's the first time you've done this, if I'm correct.
That's correct.
Yeah, and so what lessons have you learned, and what would you do differently next time? Because obviously there's more things coming up.
Interesting that of the top 10 finalists, I would say 6 or 7 were handpicked and were actually called, say, we see what you're doing, we like what you're doing, and we think you fit this contest, this challenge, so why don't you do a submission? And
so you were very proactive about creating your audience.
Yeah. So sometimes you have to find the participants and engage them to make them participate. It's not, even with all the attention we got, we still needed to put in a lot of efforts, man-to-man efforts, doing calls to stimulate participation.
Okay. And what have you learned from it for next time? What would you do more social media? Would you do
No, I wouldn't worry too much about social media because social media didn't help us a lot. It's really about activating your network. So, and if you know you don't have sufficient network in a certain technology area or business area, that you need to find a partner who does have this network, because activation is really something which is best done person to person in terms of a call or in terms of personal emails, more than it is in terms of marketing. Because there are so many challenges out there nowadays. If you type in the word business challenge, I know there's lots in the Netherlands. So if you want people to participate, you tell them you want them personally to participate. So that
which is quite time consuming.
It's incredibly time consuming. But in the end, you have to be modest about the number of submissions you can get just by putting your name to it.
So what's next? What are you moving on to?
So we're moving on to the robotics challenge. It's actually going to be the baggage handling challenge. So jointly with Schiphol Airport, we are going to do, it's not a grand challenge, but it's going to be a global challenge on finding robotic solutions for a number of our baggage handling processes. So I can announce that we are organizing this challenge jointly with 9 Sigma. So as I mentioned, we don't have this network in the robotics community. 9 Sigma does have this global network into technology. So we are going to use their network and their help in activating what we think are the right participants. So that's our next step. It's going to be a big one. So we are launching in 3 weeks. And we're hoping to make a nice impact. And to give you sort of a scale of what we're looking for, we are hoping that we'll get 20 valuable submissions. That will actually bring us something new and innovative.
So you're using basically 9 Sigma to create your audience.
Yes, because
and then invite them into it.
Yeah. So it's partly Rolodex, partly experience. So they're very experienced in getting the engagement, but they also have the right Rolodex. And basically, they're the only company that has a global Rolodex of the size we are looking for.
So what's coming out here is this sort of the war for access to talent. To find the right people to give you the right kind of ideas is both time-consuming and quite difficult.
It is.
Yeah.
And so it's not just talent, it's also about the company being at the right stage to fill our needs. Because if they're very large companies, they might not be willing to participate in this challenge because they feel, well, if you want to develop this, then just order us to develop it. And they'll charge us the maximum.
Mm-hmm.
What we're looking for is more the co-development modus in which we jointly develop a solution that can later be further commercialized by our partner. So we are not interested in the IP that this challenge is going to bring. We're only interested in the solutions and being an early adopter.
So I was going to ask quite a question on that about how is the IP managed? Because that's obviously for smaller companies that's really often a very sensitive issue.
Yeah, so in principle we'll ask them not to file any confidential information. So if it's hard IP, we don't want to know it. If it's we let them check a box that whatever they are submitting is not confidential and is open for use. And if it is, they have to make a specific disclaimer and they have to get in touch with us and we see if we can give them that confidentiality.
Okay, so it lies with them, but you help them develop and exploit it. Is that the
correct?
Yeah.
So the idea is that we're the launching platform, and we assist with our knowledge in the co-development, of course, also partially the investment. But once developed and ready for further commercialization, it's up to the winners of the challenge to pick it up and build their business on it.
Perhaps I've had a quick question here about why is baggage handling so difficult? You know, there's lots of robotic systems available for car manufacturing or whatever. What's different? Why is it unique for the airline industry?
Yeah, I think the main difference is that if you're looking at the usual industrial robotics, is they're intended to handle pieces of approximately the same size and shape in approximately the same rhythm. Baggage is all different forms and shapes, and not just that, it also different forms of toughness. So you have the soft bags and the hard bags and the odd size bags. So there's lots of different packages and sizes and fabrics to manage, and that's still difficult. So there are some solutions in place, but they're not considered very optimal yet.
Have you had to make a case within KLM to start looking at this, or is it just a kind of common sense thing that you've picked up? That there must be a lot of benefits in doing this.
Well, it's basically we had to start somewhere, and baggage is something that is very labor intensive. So that's why we felt this would make a good start.
Mm-hmm.
And we have lots in the pipeline. It was a natural first. Also depend on the sponsorship for this challenge. We have sponsorship from our senior vice president in charge of baggage handling, and good sponsorship from Schiphol Airport. So that made it an ideal place to start.
So it's really in part due to the leadership that people are standing up and being counted on this. We've got big chunky funds.
Definitely,
yeah.
Because if we have the philosophy that we only do this if we have a proper sponsor. The proper sponsor for us is top 20, top 15 within KLM. Otherwise, we don't do it. And otherwise, we feel that we, as an innovation department, are putting a lot of energy to it, and that we have to work too hard to get the reception we need. So if the proper sponsor is giving us the reception and telling his people, listen, I find this important, we can focus on what we're good at, and that's actually getting the maximum out of this challenge instead of just selling why we're doing this challenge.
So there's a bit of sort of yin and yang here. You're pushing stuff to a certain level, but I sort of understand not too far before you get the pull from someone very senior.
Actually, we sell it, and if it's in the beginning we sell it to potential sponsors. And this guy in particular that's running Schiphol operations for KLM, we sold him this idea. Okay, let's try an innovative approach, because we felt like we were going in circles with our usual suppliers, and he as well wanted to have this acceleration in adoption of robotics. So we explained him our idea, and he was very enthusiastic. And he told him, okay, I love it. Talk to whoever you want to talk to, and tell them I like the idea, and that really helped. And we had somebody actually asking him, is it true? Are you supporting this? And he said, yeah, I support it. That was actually the senior guy from Schiphol Airport. And he went to our sponsor, and our sponsor backed us up. And that's basically why we're organizing it now. Otherwise, we might have realized it, but it wouldn't be as carried as it will be now.
Mm-hmm. And just as a point of process, if there are any more questions, please do put them in the chat box. There's a few more have come in, but obviously interested to get any more of interest. Just moving on, so if you extrapolate what you've learned here, that there's a kind of push and pull of innovation, is that something you're actively encompassing? Do you have ways of working with some of your very senior sponsors to get their insights about what they need, or is it still very much you coming up with insights that you then advocate into the business?
Yeah, to be honest, we do feel that there is, and now we have sort of this portfolio on hand of projects we would like to do basically on your platform, and we have this deck in hand, and every time we meet a potential sponsor, be it at a drink or over a drink or just having a cup of coffee, we start throwing these ideas. So it's sort of a hidden sales agenda we have. And once it resonates and we feel, okay, this could be it, then we actually do it. So that's what we're doing now in the Robotics Challenge. We're hoping to do the next one in January, which is a retail challenge, focusing on how we can enlarge the retail opportunities for KLM or for Air France KLM. So basically, but we have the philosophy, no sponsor, no challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. And you time limit these challenges then to a couple of weeks, whatever?
Yeah, the upcoming robotics one we keep open for 4 weeks, and then we close mid-December, and we have the final week in January, and then the finale week we bring them over here to the Netherlands for the top 6 to top 10 concepts.
Okay, so this is obviously you're hoping this is going to be far more material, obviously, than the Green Aruba challenge, which was kind of a bit of a pilot. It was a nice outcome, but it was never going to be material to KLM given the size of you.
No, that's true. That's true. In that perspective, it was a sort of a practice challenge, but with lots of good learnings. That energy is much more important than marketing spend, for instance.
Yeah, indeed.
But this one, the baggage challenge, will basically the goal is very ambitious. That it's in the end it's going to yield a multi-million, let's say, cost reduction for us.
Okay, I think we're more or less coming to the end of the questions that we have. So unless there's anything else, if you want to add them any second now, we'll draw this to a conclusion. In that case, I'd just like to say thank you very much indeed, Roger. You've been very open and honest as always.
Thank you, Jeff.
Lessons learned. And yeah. Yeah, thank you very much indeed for your time. And hopefully, if any more questions, please do reach out to us. If anyone's got any interest or have got friends who've got interest in robotics, the KLM Robotics Challenge will be launched in a couple of weeks' time. You never know quite what's going to happen there. That's the whole point. So please do ask them to engage. Will it be on the KLM website somewhere?
Yes, it's going to be on Journeys of Innovation. KLM.com/journeys of innovation.
Yeah.
That's going to be our new URL. It's not live yet.
Yeah, indeed.
So we have some work to do.
Yes, we do. Excellent. Well, in that case, thank you very much indeed. And
my pleasure, Jeff. Thanks again for giving me the time.